Have you ever woken up and felt like you were just reliving the same old day? The alarm rings, your hand reaches for the phone. You scroll through countless notifications, then rush into work, deadlines, and the same familiar pressures. Every morning feels identical, as if life itself is stuck on repeat in an endless loop. And then one day you ask yourself, is this truly all there is? Stoicism offers us another way of seeing. Not empty slogans, but practical principles that have helped people for centuries remain steady in the midst of chaos. It reminds us that mastery of life is not in the hands of others, but in how we perceive, how we respond, and how we choose to live each day. When you stop moving through life on autopilot and begin to live with intention, you find yourself stronger than any pressure. And today, we will walk through 12 meditations to open a morning that feels truly new. 1. Remember today could be the last. Each morning, we are often swept into the familiar current. Unanswered messages, work emails, bills waiting to be paid, or chores left undone. In that rush, few pause long enough to notice a simple yet extraordinary truth. We are still alive. That moment of opening our eyes, taking in a fresh breath, feeling the heart still beating, that is already a miracle we often overlook. When you remind yourself that today could be your last, it is not to plant fear, but to grant yourself a new lens to see life with deeper clarity and gratitude. Imagine sitting next to someone you love, a parent, an old friend, or your partner. Instead of being fully present, you scroll through your phone, half-heartedly reply, offering shallow words. But if you knew this was the last time you would sit beside them, would you still be indifferent? Every glance, every word would become precious, and you would want to carve each moment into memory. Death, when allowed into our thoughts, does not leave us in despair. It sharpens how we live, teaching us to value what we once ignored. I once knew a man who survived a severe accident. As he lay on the pavement, he did not think about money or unfinished plans. He only regretted having argued with his wife that very morning over something trivial. From that day on, he never left home without embracing her and saying goodbye. He did not do this out of fear, but because he had learned to place true value on the gift of each day. When we understand that time promises us nothing beyond this moment, we begin to live with more deliberate choices, to complain less, to care more, and to act on what matters instead of waiting. You can turn this lesson into a quiet but powerful habit. Each morning, spend 30 seconds asking, if today were my last, whom would I want to see? What would I want to say? And what would I refuse to repeat? Write down one thing and do it that very day. Not to become great, but so that when your eyes finally close, you won't regret neglecting what truly mattered. When you live as if death is quietly present, you start to notice beauty even in the most ordinary moments. 2. Be grateful for what is here. Most mornings, many of us begin by reaching for our phones, unconsciously comparing ourselves to the world outside. A friend posts pictures from Europe. A colleague shows off a new car, another announces a promotion, and within minutes, your mind is flooded with a sense of lack. Lacking time, luck, opportunity, achievement. Yet how many pause to realize that the moment you opened your eyes, you already possessed what countless others desperately long for. Eyes that still see, legs that still walk, a loved one just one message away. These seemingly ordinary things are the foundation of life itself, yet we scroll past them as if they carried no worth. Gratitude is not a vague idea, nor a ritual of meditation. It is a survival skill in an age that constantly reminds you that you are not enough. It is remembering the night you lay sick with fever, wishing someone would be by your side, and realizing that today, simply waking up healthy and drinking a glass of water is already extraordinary. It is recognizing as you eat a simple meal that the lights still work, the internet still runs, and your stomach no longer aches with hunger. In such small and ordinary details, you discover endless reasons to be grateful. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his journals, "Instead of longing for what you don't have, reflect on what you do have and imagine how desperately you would want it back if it vanished." Picture waking up tomorrow to find everything familiar gone: your room, your bed, even your health. Would you still be indifferent to what you have today? Of course not. In that instant, you would understand the weight of gratitude. I recall speaking with a carpenter. After an accident forced him to spend months bedridden, he said what he missed most was not wealth or distant travel, but the simple act of working in his small shop or driving himself to the market for breakfast. For him, returning to those ordinary routines was complete happiness. His story reminded me that gratitude is not about having more, but about truly seeing what is already here. If you want to practice, try something simple before sleep. Look around your room and pick one thing you would miss most if it disappeared tomorrow. It could be a desk lamp, a soft pillow, or even just an easy breath. Then ask yourself, have I lived today with gratitude for this? You don't need a long journal, just pause for a few seconds to truly feel it. And if you wake up the next morning and still find it by your side, smile. Because often happiness does not come from gaining more, but from seeing the value of what has always been before your eyes. 3. Simplify to see more clearly. Modern life teaches us that the more we have, the busier we are, the more we multitask, the more valuable our life must be. We buy things we don't need, take on work we don't want, say yes to invitations though our hearts crave rest. Slowly, we crowd our space and our minds with burdens that bring no peace. And when we finally sit still, we feel weary, heavy, and uncertain about what truly matters. This is the trap of complexity. It convinces us we are living fully, but in truth, it only adds chains. Simplicity does not mean deprivation, nor is it the denial of joy. Simplicity is discernment, the courage to let go of the excess and hold on to the essential. Imagine your mind as a desk. Each day you pile on reports, news, comparisons, unread messages, unkept promises. By day's end, the desk is buried, and you cannot even write a single line. Only when you clear away the clutter do you notice the important notebook that was there all along. The mind works the same way. Only when it is lightened can it see what truly deserves to stay. I recall a friend who often complained of being endlessly busy yet never fulfilled. After months of frustration, he created a short list, just 3 priorities each day, everything else optional. At first, he feared falling behind, but instead, he became calmer, more focused, and more successful in what truly mattered. Simplifying did not make him less, it allowed him to invest more deeply where meaning was found. The Stoics once said a great person is one who treats simple things as if they were most precious, for they refuse to let possessions or external complexity define their worth. You can begin with a small act. Decline a meeting you don't want, turn off unnecessary notifications, or keep only 3 essential tasks each day. By choosing less, you choose more clearly. And in that clarity, you recover not only freedom, but also the peace you once believed you had to chase. 4. Focus only on what you control. At the core of Stoic philosophy lies a sharp distinction between what is within our power and what is beyond it. We cannot control the weather, force others to think as we do, or prevent unforeseen events. But we always retain one untouchable power: the choice of our response. If you pour your energy into what is not yours to command, you will be drained and embittered. But if you give your attention to what belongs to you, you will feel lighter and free. I remember once when my flight was cancelled at the last minute. The waiting hall erupted in chaos, passengers shouting at staff, one man turning red with anger. Yet the storm outside would not yield to his fury. Meanwhile, a woman nearby, facing the same delay, quietly opened a book, smiling occasionally at her child. Both were powerless against the storm, but one destroyed his own peace, while the other chose to keep it. That moment engraved a lesson in me. True freedom does not mean doing everything, but not letting circumstances imprison the mind. The Stoics emphasized that happiness and freedom come from letting go of what is not ours. You cannot govern another's words, but you can govern how much your ears and heart receive. You cannot banish the rain, but you can put on a coat, open an umbrella, or wait calmly. Change your perspective, and what once seemed an annoyance becomes a chance to practice choice. You can train this with a simple habit. Whenever you feel disturbed, ask, "Can I change this?" If the answer is yes, act. If the answer is no, release it. Setting down a burden does not mean surrender, but refusing to carry what was never yours. And in that moment of release, you recover something greater than control: inner peace. 5. Do not let others steer you. One of the subtlest traps that robs us of peace is caring too much about the opinions and judgments of others. A single careless remark, a glance of disapproval, or an offhand comment online can leave us restless, insecure, even altering how we live. The irony is that the one who gave the opinion often forgets it within minutes, while we carry it for the whole day, letting it gnaw at our confidence and distract us from what truly matters. When we let others' views steer us, we hand over the reins of our emotions and become passengers on our own path. I once had a friend who was an excellent violinist. From childhood, he loved music. Yet for years he avoided performing publicly because a former teacher once told him, "You'll never be good enough for the stage." Those words echoed in his mind, and each time he picked up the violin, he hesitated. But one day he realized that teacher did not live his life, nor share in his late-night practice sessions, nor bear the calluses on his hands. He began playing in parks, then in small cafes. The audience was not always perfect, but he was free, because at last he played for himself, not for praise, not out of fear of criticism. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We love ourselves more than anyone else, yet we care more for others' opinions than our own thoughts." A paradox, yet a piercing truth. Fear of judgment has ancient roots. From when human survival depended on belonging to the tribe, exile could mean death. But today, you may wear what you like, speak your mind, and no one has the power to cast you out of society. Still, we live as though a laugh at our expense means the world has abandoned us. In reality, what we fear is only the shadow of an old memory, not a true danger. You can loosen the grip of others' opinions with a simple rule. Whenever you receive criticism, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, "Is this person living a life I admire?" If the answer is no, why hand them the power to shape your mood? If the answer is yes, then treat their words not as a verdict, but as a suggestion to reflect upon. Live this way, and you will no longer be swayed by every gust of public opinion. You will stand firmly on your own values, walking each step from your inner compass, not from fleeting glances of others. 6. Not everything demands a reaction. In daily life, we often feel compelled to react to everything that happens. A harsh word, a rude gesture, a comment online each becomes fuel for an outburst. Yet most of these moments require no response at all. They come and go like passing winds. If you rush to answer everyone, you place the remote control of your mind in someone else's hands. I once witnessed this clearly. In a cafe, a customer grew furious because a server spilled a little water while bringing a drink. He frowned, complained loudly, and turned the entire atmosphere tense. At the next table, another guest had water splashed on his shirt, but simply smiled and wiped it off. The first man let a trivial annoyance ignite his whole morning, while the second kept his peace. It reminded me, not every reaction is necessary. At times, silence and letting go is the strongest form of strength. Epictetus once taught that if someone makes you angry, it is only because you open the door of your mind to them. This is not weakness, but a declaration of power. Only you decide what enters your mind. In the instant another tries to provoke you, you can close that door and leave them outside. This is not defeat. It is mastery of yourself. Even science shows that when you explode in reaction, the primitive brain overwhelms reason, driving you to act impulsively. But if you pause for just a few seconds, your rational mind can step in, guiding a wiser response. A single deep breath is enough to pull yourself out of the whirlpool of impulse. In that quiet space, you reclaim true freedom, freedom from others' control, and freedom from your own rashness. Next time someone mocks you, when you feel the urge to strike back, try counting silently from 5 down to 1. In that brief pause, you will notice you have a choice. Either react and play their game, or remain calm and move forward. Each time you choose silence over retaliation, you affirm to yourself that you are at the wheel, not anyone else. And then you will see, not everything requires a reaction. Sometimes no reaction is the most powerful one. 7. Live in the present. We often live as though the present is just a draft, that life will truly begin once work is lighter, once money is more, once responsibilities are cleared away. In waiting for this someday, we miss the moments unfolding right before us. You may eat breakfast while your mind races through the day's schedule. You may sit with loved ones while your thoughts drift to unfinished plans. And when it all passes, you realize you cannot recall the taste of that meal or the look in their eyes. Losing the present rarely makes noise. It slips away silently as the mind runs ahead or lingers behind. Once, I stood at a crowded intersection waiting for the light. Most people stared at their phones, nodding to music or scrolling headlines. But a middle-aged man simply stood still, closed his eyes, and drew a long breath. His face was serene, his hands relaxed. That image, so ordinary, stayed with me. It revealed that even amid the city's chaos, a person can find peace by simply returning to the present. We don't need more conditions, only more attention. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that your time is not limitless, and if you don't use it to clear the clouds from your mind, it will slip away, taking you with it. His words sound like a bell. We don't lack time, we waste it on worries that have not arrived. When your mind wanders into the future, you forfeit the only moment you truly hold. You can train presence with small acts. Each morning, pick any object in your room, a spoon, a lamp, a cup of coffee, and observe it for a few seconds, asking, "Am I really here?" Or set an alarm to pause every 3 hours, take 3 breaths, and tell yourself, I am here. These simple gestures reconnect you with now. And if sometimes you feel uneasy doing nothing, remember that the true test is the ability to sit still without feeling lacking. Life does not exist in tomorrow, nor in yesterday. It unfolds only here and now. If you are brave enough to remain with the present, you will realize you have never lacked the time to live fully. 8. See challenges as a mental gym. In life, adversity often arrives precisely when we want everything to go smoothly. You may be rushing to an important meeting when your computer crashes. You may be hurrying to an appointment when your car runs out of gas. You may finish cleaning your home only to have rain undo it all. Such moments make us curse the universe as if it were against us. Yet with a shift in view, we see these not as punishments but as exercises to strengthen the mind, just as muscles grow only when tested under strain. The Stoics believe that hardship is not an enemy, but a trainer. A mind accustomed only to ease will collapse in storms, while a mind regularly exercised in adversity grows steady, like steel forged in fire. Think of the time you endured a harsh complaint from a colleague or loved one. Instead of seeing it as an insult, you could see it as a test of patience. Each time you endure without erupting, you build self-control and maturity. I once knew a taxi driver who worked night shifts. Each week he met all kinds of passengers, the drunk, the angry, even those who left without paying. At first, he often lost his temper, sometimes sleepless over such encounters, but gradually, he changed his approach. Whenever faced with trouble, he told himself, "This is my training for tomorrow." Those simple words helped him stay calm where others would lose control. And in that calmness, he found freedom. Epictetus declared that glory lies not in avoiding difficulties, but in overcoming them with resilience. The greater the challenge, the greater the victory, even if that victory is simply preserving inner peace. When you treat each setback as mental training, you realize life is not against you. It is shaping you into a stronger, steadier version of yourself. So, next time you face an unexpected setback or a moment of irritation, try smiling and thinking, "This is my gym." For it is in those very moments of challenge that your inner strength is being forged, preparing you to walk forward more firmly than ever. 9. Pain will pass, but growth remains. None of us can escape moments of hurt. It may be the disappointment of losing an important job opportunity, the sorrow of unreturned affection, or the sting of betrayal by someone you once fully trusted. In those times, we often believe the pain will last forever, that we will never overcome it. Yet if you look back, you will see that most of the wounds that once broke you have faded with time. They came suddenly, made you cry, made you writhe, but eventually they left, leaving behind an empty space where growth quietly took root. What matters is what we choose to do while pain is present. If you brood, complain, and feed resentment, you turn pain into chains that bind you. But if you face it as a mirror, you will see your weaknesses, your limits, and even truths you had never noticed before. One failure may teach you to be more careful in decisions. One betrayal may help you choose those truly worthy. One loss may deepen your understanding of the value of the present. Pain then ceases to be punishment and becomes material from which you carve a steadier version of yourself. I recall a friend who invested nearly all his savings into a project, only to lose everything because a partner exploited him. For months he suffered, blamed himself, even lost faith in his own judgment. But instead of remaining trapped in resentment, He began recording each mistake, analyzing causes, and recognizing the blind spots in his character that made him vulnerable. That process did not erase the pain, but it transformed it into an invaluable lesson. Years later, he started again with a smaller, sturdier project, and this time he built a stable, lasting livelihood. Seeing that outcome, I understood that growth never comes in easy days. It usually appears only when we dare to confront suffering. The Stoics believed hardship does not turn us into someone else. It strips away the outer shell to reveal who we truly are. And in moments of hurt, we are given a choice: to let pain bury us, or to let it become the step toward greater resilience. Pain will pass, but if used well, growth will remain. Therefore, instead of avoiding it, walk straight into it, learn from it, and let it become part of the silent strength you carry for life. 10. Discipline is true freedom. When people hear of discipline, they often picture restriction, the loss of joy, or forcing oneself into harsh rules. But in truth, the opposite is real. Discipline is not chains, it is the key to genuine freedom. Without it, we become slaves to temptation and short-term habits. When you let impulses lead, life collapses into disorder. Waking tired because you scrolled late into the night, work delayed because you cannot put down your phone, health declining because you cannot resist cravings. These small lapses silently erode your freedom, piece by piece. Discipline is the ability to command yourself and obey yourself. It lets you choose what benefits you in the long run instead of sinking into immediate pleasure. Each time you keep a disciplined habit, however small, you are sending yourself a message: I am in charge of this life. I recall a friend who complained of being trapped in endless work hours, irregular meals, and poor sleep. He felt ruled by his job. But when he began with a single small habit, running 10 minutes every morning, everything began to shift. At first, it was only a promise to his shoes in the road. But after months, he noticed he was also committing to other things: sleeping on time, eating better, managing hours more wisely. Discipline in one small act opened freedom across his life. The Stoics reminded us that if you cannot lead yourself, you will inevitably be led by outside forces. You will be pulled by the market, by fleeting emotions, by the habits of others. But with discipline, you are not easily swayed by external chaos. You know what you need, what you want, and the boundaries you will not cross. That firmness grants you the strength to live true to your values. You can begin cultivating discipline with the simplest actions. Wake 15 minutes earlier to sit in silence and write a few lines for the day. Resist picking up your phone in the first hour after waking. Hold yourself to 1 cup of coffee instead of 3. Such small acts, repeated, become a strong foundation. And from that foundation, you will see that freedom does not come from doing whatever you want, but from being strong enough not to be dragged by everything around you. Discipline is freedom at its deepest level, for it grants you the power to walk the path you truly choose. 11. Led by example, not by words. In life, many develop the habit of giving advice, teaching others how to live, or reminding them to change. We easily tell our children to spend less time on their phones, urge our friends to live authentically, or advise colleagues to stay calm under pressure. Yet if we do not live this ourselves, our words soon ring hollow. What inspires trust and respect is not what we say, but how we live and act each day. I recall one afternoon in a small eatery when an elderly man quietly picked up a wallet a young woman had dropped. He returned it without seeking attention, without boasting, without even waiting for thanks. The act happened so quickly that few noticed, but it left a strong impression on me. It showed me that a simple deed, born of sincerity, can inspire more deeply than 1,000 lectures. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That reminder was true in his time and remains true today. Instead of persuading others to live by certain standards, let your life itself be the proof. When you master your anger, those around you will learn the power of calm. When you honor others' time by arriving punctually, you show that respect needs no words. When you take responsibility for small acts like cleaning shared spaces or offering apologies, you set a silent example of accountability. A person may speak thousands of fine words, only to be forgotten. But a repeated daily action, however ordinary, leaves a lasting mark. The Stoics never urged us to become great orators. They urged us to become living evidence of the philosophy we follow. And through your small, consistent deeds, you are teaching family, colleagues, and even strangers a quiet but enduring lesson. Ask yourself, is someone watching your life to learn from it? It may be your child, a younger colleague, or your partner. If so, then every act of yours is a lesson without words. For in the end, a person's true worth lies not in their declarations, but in what they faithfully practice each day. 12. Do not wait for perfection to begin. One of the greatest reasons people miss the chance to change is the habit of waiting for perfection. We tell ourselves we need more time, more knowledge, better tools, or ideal conditions before we dare to act. But perfection never arrives, and if you keep waiting, life slips away unused. Every skill, every achievement, every success you admire began with clumsy, imperfect first steps. No musician played their first piece without striking wrong notes. No author wrote their first lines as a masterpiece. Perfection is not the beginning, it is the result of starting imperfectly. I once knew a friend who dreamed of writing a book. He spent years reading, taking notes, even buying every tool and program to prepare. But the more he prepared, the more he feared his first draft would be terrible, and so he never wrote a single chapter. By contrast, another friend, when an idea came, simply opened a blank file and typed the first words, however messy. A year later, she had a complete draft and kept refining it. The first friend waited for perfection and never began. The second accepted imperfection and turned it into the ground of growth. The Stoics warned us that while we wait for life to begin, life is already passing. This means if you wait for the moment when everything is ready, you will never truly live. Ask yourself, how many times have you delayed a plan because you thought you weren't good enough, smart enough, or lucky enough? And how many opportunities slipped past because you stood still at the starting line? Instead of waiting, cultivate the habit of small beginnings. If you want to write 2 sentences today. If you want to exercise, run 5 minutes instead of waiting for an hour. If you want to learn a skill, give it 10 minutes now instead of waiting for the perfect schedule. The truth is, every step, no matter how small, moves you closer to what you desire. Perfection is only an excuse the ego creates to keep you safe in your comfort zone. Remember, imperfect action is better than endless delay. Only when you dare to move clumsily will you grow into clarity and mastery. Beginning today, even in imperfection, is the only way to create a tomorrow that is whole. For me, Stoic reflections are not merely ancient teachings, but a compass to examine the way I live. I once believed happiness would come with more achievements, but it comes with more presence. more recognition, or when the world outside finally aligned with my desires. But the more I experienced, the clearer it became that true peace does not lie in changing the world. It lies in changing how I respond to it. Each time I fail, instead of blaming, I learn to see it as a lesson. Each time I hear criticism, instead of retreating, I ask myself whether that opinion is truly worth my concern. What I value most in the Stoic spirit is its reminder of self-mastery. We cannot choose what happens, but we can always choose our attitude toward it. And when I practice living with that awareness, I find myself less impatient, less dependent on external judgment, and more able to appreciate what is already present. It is not perfection, but a journey one that brings me closer each day to steadiness and inner freedom. If you find these reflections meaningful, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. And hold on to this truth. You do not need to wait for a special day to change, because every morning is an opportunity to begin again, to live as a better version of yourself. See you in the next video.